You get practical, no BS insights on how to grow yourself and grow your career. On this episode today, we are talking to Leslie Venetz. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you.
Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. First and foremost, thank you for having me. Very excited for this conversation as we were sort of going back and forth in prep. I could feel myself getting excited to chat with you about these topics. So yes, I am Leslie Venetz. I'm the founder of Sales Team Builder, my own sales consulting company. We specialize in coaching, training, consulting for 10 million plus revenue sales teams that really want to figure out both the skill sets and the repeatable processes to get outbound motions done properly in ways that our buyers don't hate. And prior to leaving corporate to double down on my own business, I spent 15 years in B2B sales, have made tens of thousands of cold calls, have been a head of sales 3 times, have sold just about everything intangible that you can. And it's, brought me here.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk a little bit about sort of A to B, how you got to where you're at in your career. Just give us a very brief synopsis. You already kind of told us a little bit, but how did you end up where you're at?
Yeah. So I started sales, I think how almost all people start sales, which is accidentally.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. Yes. Very accidentally. Unbeknownst to me, I was really setting myself up for a successful career in sales because I was, a speech and debate nerd, a Model United Nations nerd. And I say nerd in a very, very loving way, all through high school, all through college, and was in student government, did the whole thing, Britta.
Yeah.
And I didn't at the time realize how much I was practicing my rhetoric skills, how much I was practicing those curiosity and empathy and relationship building skills. And then I graduated. I'm a native Montanan, so graduated, moved to Chicago without a job because I guess at the time I thought that was an acceptable thing to do. In retrospect, I'm why, Leslie? I'm actually very funny sidebar, but I feel you allowed me to have this small tangent, because I know that you are a bit of a type A personality as well.
Yes.
So the way I actually made the decision to move to Chicago was I created a huge Excel document and I put every city over 250,000 residents in the US, as well as some international cities on it. And I wanted to move to a big city, but mind you, in my Montana mind, 250,000 was huge. So I put that on one of the axes, and on the top, I put everything that was important to me, and then I gave them point values based on how important they were. And I
amazing. This is
everything.
Such a good idea.
And Chicago literally had the most points. So I sold my car, sold off all the possessions I couldn't carry with me, moved here without a job, did it. But the first job I got was a sales job. And I didn't take it because I wanted to be in sales. I took it because it was a business intelligence company and I thought I wanted to be in marketing. I got my college degree in marketing. We all know how well using your college degree and your real life job goes. But in my head, I was I'll take this job, I'll prove myself, and then I'll have a cross departmental transfer. And within a couple of weeks, I so fully realized that sales was something that I had a knack for in a really deep and meaningful way. And it's been my career ever since.
That is so cool. I love that story, mostly because, the Excel document it just sings to my heart, but I love that you took a chance. I love that you sort of found your way to a career almost by accident, but that you found that skills. I think it's Steve Jobs says, you can only connect the dots going backwards, that you were developing these skills in your career or in your life that kind of contributed to your career. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, because I know you have a different way of looking at things. I wanted to talk a little bit about gatekeeping that happens, because I have a lot of friends, myself included, where I was really stuck in the service industry and I didn't see myself in corporate spheres. And we don't need to talk about my story, but I remember every time I would read a job description, even biz dev stuff is fairly straightforward, but even when I would read those job descriptions, I'd be like, what the F does this even mean? Like, I still don't understand what the qualifications are. Like, if you're thinking about applying for a job and you're reading job descriptions, or just talk a little bit about gatekeeping and how that works and what happens.
Yeah. I mean, gatekeeping happens on so many levels. And I think that like your story is a story of the people, right? Like it is a really relatable story because we as women don't often see ourselves in these types of roles. Like I only left corporate a year ago to double down and be a full-time founder. And people are like, well, why didn't you become an entrepreneur sooner? And I was like, well, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. 2%, both according to PitchBook and Crunchbase, 2% of the founders that got funding last year were women.
No, only 2%.
10% if you include founders that were part of a founding team where one of the members was a man.
Wow.
So it's like, okay, we're not seeing ourselves there. We're not seeing ourselves in sales, especially sales leadership. When you get up to sales leadership, single digits for women. So we're not seeing ourselves in the roles, in the positions that we should be aspiring to be in, that we should be in, right? So I think that in and of itself is a form of gatekeeping. And the sort of knock-on effect, whether intentional or not, is that often the way the job adverts are written is using a lot of insider language, which drives me nuts. It's something I do. And it like I catch myself and then I'll be like KPI and then I'm like key performance indicator. Like don't assume that everybody knows all of this like crazy internal language. And I think like the language is one piece of the gatekeeping. And I personally, Britta, I really feel like it's done to like make us feel special. People are like, oh, it's like a time saver. And I'm like, is it?
Like, sure. Yeah.
I think like all the lingo and all the acronyms are one form of gatekeeping. Very closely related to that are like truly ridiculous expectations for jobs. Like entry-level SDR role must have 2 years experience at SaaS companies selling to VPs of sales. And you're like,
oh my gosh.
Well, like full stop, that's not an entry-level role. And also like, what? Like, if
like,
you're
where would
right. And like, if you're telling me that your product is so complicated that to be able to set a meeting, I need to have 2 years of experience selling a similar product to your ICP, like that's either a totally false barrier or it's a you problem. Like you are creating that gate, you are creating that false barrier to entry. I definitely want to talk about like how it impacts women specifically, but I feel like one other example is the 4-year degree for entry level for any sales job.
Yeah.
Why?
Same word.
Like what? I mean, right? Like I have one, and college was amazing, but college was a privilege. Like college was a privilege for me. It was a privilege because I was able to stay in state, and in-state college in Montana is dirt cheap. It was a privilege for me because my first year of college, my parents paid for. So I had like a year of time to like transition and get my feet under me before I had to take on that burden. It was a privilege because I got to stay in college for 6 years because that's how long it took for me to be able to work full time and finish my credits. But I didn't have caretaking responsibility, right? Like there's so many layers of privilege inherent in getting that 4-year degree.
Absolutely.
And I fail on almost all accounts to see how having a 4-year degree directly translates into your ability to be an inside sales rep or an AE or an SDR or whatever the role is.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love, so there's a couple of things that I love. One, first of all, if your product is so complicated that people need a lot of experience to sell it, it's probably not a great product. Like that's probably not going to bode well for you in the marketplace first. But I love what you talked about when you said that, if someone needs 2 years of experience to be able to sell anything that you have, you know, what is the point of even having like an SDR position? It shouldn't even be an SDR position. It should be just a straight biz dev position if it's that complicated. And two, the other thing I really, really liked about what you said about the 4-year degree is I think most of the people that I've met that are probably the most talented salespeople have little to no experience in a traditional sales role. It's the people that have had these more relationship development style, either, careers or experiences. And a lot of people I know don't have any experience in higher ed, and they become phenomenal salespeople.
Yeah.
So do you have any experience with that? Say more about that.
Yeah. Some of my favorite people to hire, like when we look at it through the lens of a 4-year degree, I do not hire based on the degree. I like hiring people out of like theater programs.
Ooh, interesting.
Incredible. That's like an incredible, like there's a really popular theater conservatory in Chicago at DePaul.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best salespeople I've ever seen. Or folks that took on leadership roles, like they were like, the vice president of their sorority. So like they had access to that type of stuff because they were in college, but it's like, I don't care about the college degree. I care about like the fact that you felt called to take on a leadership role.
Yeah. I'm so curious.
Or even being like you wanted to be, I'm not really a sports person, but the person on the team that's
like the captain, the team captain, is that? I don't know.
Yes, throw the football through the goalpost. Yes, like the captain. So I would look for not actually the 4-year degree. I would prioritize the experiences, to your point, those lived experiences that I thought would translate well to sales. And you can get those in high school. You can get those with non-traditional degrees. You can get those by maybe having to take some time off and get right to work. Or there are so many ways to have those types of lived experiences that generate the skill sets that I see. It sounds like we agree on this, that like most often translate to a successful sales career.
Yeah, I'm so curious. How did you discover, because those are just such pointed examples of like really specific places that you look for, sales talent. How did you discover that? Like what are the traits that you tend to find from those specific areas?
Yeah, curiosity is a big one.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I find that curiosity is a huge one. And like well before I knew what the STAR methodology was, which is like situation, task, action, result. I would do that. Like those were the types of questions I was just intuitively asking in interviews because I really wanted examples of like, tell me a time that you were confronted with a problem that you didn't have the solution to. Like, how did you get there?
Yeah.
To see how their brain works. Did they ask for help? Did they not ask for help? Did they immediately go to Google? Did they read a book? Did they just not figure it out? Or did they delegate it to somebody? Like, how does your brain work? And then like indexing on people that are curious and are problem solvers. That's a big one. Leadership skills for me, which doesn't necessarily mean you have to, be that like captain or the sorority president or whatever, but, like being in the PTA or being on a nonprofit board or like, whatever it is, like those opportunities where it shows both initiative and passion, I think are big ones. But like, honestly, a lot of it, and I am no expert on hiring. I have made plenty of bad hires. So like take it all with a grain of salt. But after 15 years of hiring sales professionals, I have found the most success over indexing on soft skills like empathy, curiosity, understanding, initiative, passion, and focusing less on somebody that comes in being like, well, I have 10 years of experience selling it, because you just naturally tend to get more of the like, I know it all personalities if you focus too much on a CV. And I prefer to have more of the like learn it all mindset on my team.
I like that. And two, sometimes if someone has 10 years of experience, sales 10 years ago is not what sales is today. And you don't want to have to unteach bad habits.
Yeah.
So that makes so much sense. So you said curiosity, leadership skills,
Passion.
Yeah.
Passion is a big one. Empathy is a big one. Like all things that make you want to understand people and what you're selling and how it helps in the world around you. Like people that seek to understand, maybe is that I should write that down. People
you should. Write it down.
Yeah.
That's it's so interesting to me too that you're finding this talent in non-traditional places. And I wish more employers would really look in non-traditional places. So if the employers aren't going to look, what would you tell someone who has a very non-traditional career path, maybe is a bartender right now and is just sick of it, or is, doing some entry-level something and they're sick of it and they have thought about sales, but don't know if they qualify or if they could do it?
Yeah. Find a community.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would say that's the first thing. Because it doesn't matter if it's sales or some other profession. Like it's just really hard to apply for jobs and get them.
Yes.
Like
100%. Oh my God.
Like regardless of background, regardless of industry, being able to leverage a community, being able to leverage a network, it makes a huge difference. So if you want to break into sales, the number one place to start is joining communities. There's plenty of free communities that we have, like Sales Enablement Collective and Rev Genius and Sales Hacker. And then I would say if you are a woman trying to break in, definitely make sure that you are specifically adding communities like Women in Sales Club or ones that are women specific, because you're gonna need that extra level of support. It's worth it, but you're gonna need it.
I mean, talking of which, you have a really cool book club, don't you? Talking about community.
I do. Yeah, it's not a woman in sales thing. It's like anybody in business sort of thing. But speaking of people that seek to understand, like that's what I really wanted to root the book club in, was like that type of person that is just insatiably curious, that wants to learn more and understand that learn it all personality. And so the books are less sales focused and much more focused on just kind of like overall business acumen.
Cool.
We have a Seth Godin book, we have Stephen Covey, a Brene Brown, a Kim Scott, so it's like, just how do you become a better person and a stronger business professional. But yeah, thank you for asking. I'm very excited. I love to read. So finding a way to like do that with people makes it, I think, extra special. And I feel like something our entire world sometimes falls victim to, and I'm no exception. I'm very addicted to TikTok. I have to set myself a timer, but it's like that mentality of seeing like something that somebody built or like a recipe that somebody made and saving the video and getting that quick dopamine rush that tricks your brain into thinking you've actually done something. And I think that happens a lot with reading as well, that you're like, oh, I'm gonna read it, and I order the book, or I like read the synopsis of it, or maybe I even read the book, but then I don't like discuss it. I don't apply it. I don't iterate on it. So
totally. Yeah. I feel like I get so much more out. It's almost like it's a built-in accountability structure for applying the learnings when I'm, reading with a book club or reading with other people. So yeah, that is so cool. I love that. What is your favorite book that you've read so far with this group of people?
My favorite business book that literally everybody should read, like finish listening to this and then go order it, from your local or independent bookstore. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
It is the Challenger Customer. And I said customer, not sale. Sale is fine. It's whatever. It's a classic. The Challenger Customer, in my very humble opinion, is so much better. It's so good. So that for sure. And then Never Split the Difference by Chris Fox, I think is like a new age classic. It's just,
oh my God, so good. So good book. So good. I feel like any human should read that book. It's just, it's incredible.
Totally. And that's the goal, right? Is like, people are like, sales. I'm like, man, like, no, whatever you're doing, you're in sales. Like if you own a business, you're in sales. If you are in like, you know, any corporate profession, you're selling ideas or you're trying to sell like a project internally. Like I think everybody can benefit from a lot of the concepts that we practice as a craft, but that can be applied to broader life.
Well, this has been such an incredible conversation. I feel like the time is literally just like flown by, like
zooming by. But I have one more fun fact.
Please,
That's not a fun fact. For folks that are trying to break into sales, because I even found this as somebody in sales that was then trying to break into tech sales, have somebody that is in tech sales, preferably a hiring manager in tech sales or sales, look at your resume and talk you through it, because you will be like, especially like people coming out of the hospitality space and like teachers, the volume of transferable skills is wild.
Insane.
But like back to that very first point we made about like gatekeeping and terminology and acronyms, you simply don't know the naming of things.
Right.
So like if you are trying to make that transition, you don't yet have the knowledge to name the skill sets you have, but I promise you, like you have incredible skill sets that are directly transferable to sales. So really get somebody that can help you put the right names on the things that you already are exceptional at.
I mean, teachers, talk about a challenging customer. Convincing a fourth grader to do anything, let alone like 30 fourth graders, that's amazing. Magical.
If you can keep the attention of like 30 fourth graders, you can absolutely command an executive presence in a boardroom presentation.
100%. 100%. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I usually have 2 rapid fire questions I like to just ask everyone. The first one is, what is the worst career advice you've ever gotten?
Oof, God, there's been so much of it, Britta.
Like there's too many to count.
Hard to say. There should be a trigger warning before that question. I think the worst career advice I ever got, and I got it from somebody I really respect and who was an advocate for me, but was still a white dude. And he was like, you need to dial it back because you come off really abrasive in meetings.
Oh, wow.
And it was literally just for me acting the same way as everybody else in the meeting, right?
Yeah.
But I was young. I was in my early 20s. I was super impressionable. And at the time it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, oh man, I guess I really need to not be myself.
My heart just sinks hearing that. Like it just feels bad to hear on my end. Oh.
Yeah. And like he didn't even realize that he was giving me such bad advice. Like he genuinely thought he was trying to help me and give me good advice by telling me to not be myself because it rubbed my male colleagues the wrong way.
I feel like you and I could have a whole nother show about like, because we didn't even touch the angle of gatekeeping for females in, sales and in corporate careers. So if you wanted.
You're right. Like that's a whole other thing. Like hit that apply button, ladies. Like
exactly.
Men do it if they have even 60% of the bullet points checked. We should do it too. So when in doubt, hit the apply button.
Thank you. I love that. Okay, so the last rapid fire question is, what is the most? Maybe we could take this angle for you. What is the most random thing that you have had to sell?
The most random thing? I have been extraordinarily blessed to always sell products that I like deeply, deeply believe in.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So I mean, the organizations may have been imperfect, but like the products were amazing. So I've never had to sell anything super random, except maybe in interviews when some ill-informed manager is like, sell me this pen.
Oh,
Like,
I hate that.
I in fact will not, and I can already tell that this isn't the right culture for me.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
See you later. That's so great. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I would love to have you back to talk more about, the female angle. If you, I know you're super busy. If you have time.
It sounds like a must. It sounds like a
Cool.
must. We have so much more to talk about. And as you know, giving back, particularly helping folks break into textiles, but particularly helping women break in to a profession that can fundamentally change their lives, that can bridge generational wealth gaps. If that isn't something we're spending time on, what is?
Right. Yes. I love it. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you later.